The League of Women Voters of Cupertino, Sunnyvale, and the Asian Pacific Islander American Public Affairs Association presents the Santa Clara County Superior Court Judge Office 24 Candidate Forum 2014, live from the Cupertino Community Hall. And now for tonight's moderator, Roberta Holloman.
Hello, welcome to this candidate forum for Judge Office number 24. As in many of our forums, we like to ask people in the audience to ask questions. So if you have a question you want to ask, please raise your hand, and one of our helpers here will give you a card, and when you finish writing out your question, raise your hand again, and they'll collect the cards and get them to our question sorters. So this, I need to get to my script here. It's been a busy evening. This forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Cupertino, Sunnyvale, the Asian Pacific Islander American Public Affairs, and Cupertino, Fremont, Sunnyvale Council of Parent Teachers Association. And we do this to help voters make an informed choice. The League works to promote political responsibility through informed and active participation of citizens in government. The sponsoring organizations are nonpartisan and do not support or oppose any political party or candidates. I'm Roberta Holloman, a member of the League of Women Voters, and I will be a moderator tonight. In this contest, you get to vote for one person. So we will be asking, I need to also say that both candidates for this office will be participating this evening. They are Diane Ritchie and Matthew Harris.
Good evening.
They are seated in the order that they appear on the ballot. We also ask that you not record any of this forum because we are recording it and broadcasting it, and we always like to have the material in forums broadcast unedited. So we are going to start, or I should also say that the candidates will have a minute and a half each for opening statements, and then for answers to questions, they will have a minute and a half to answer. And for closing statements, they have 1 minute. And we are going to start with the opening statements with Judge Diane Ritchie.
Hi, I'm Judge Diane Ritchie. I have been a judge for almost 6 years, and experience is what counts in a judge. I'm tough on crime. I support restorative justice. I settled 30% of my cases. I've never been overturned by an appellate court. I am on the budget committee of our court and have been part of the tough decisions we have had to make because the courts in California have been cut by $1 billion. I brought prostitution diversion to Santa Clara County. I proposed diversion to provide prostitutes the tools they need to use to get off the streets. The district attorney approved the program, and now prostitutes have the option of participating in counseling and detox. If they want, they can get vocational training and assistance. I'm tough on crime. In criminal cases, I gave severe enough sentences to create real change in the behavior of defendants. I settled 30% of the civil trials that are assigned to me. I was a successful attorney for 27 years. I was a district attorney for 3.5 years and a civil attorney for 24 years. I settled multi-million-dollar cases. I was also a successful mediator before becoming a judge.
Thank you, and I forgot to mention that we have timers here to help you and help me. Mr. Harris.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Matthew Harris. I'm running for Superior Court Judge. And thanks for being here when you could be somewhere else. And thanks to people that are at home watching this instead of Monday Night Football. I appreciate your concern with the community, and I share it. I decided to run for judge because the people that come before the court and the taxpayers deserve a judge that is qualified and experienced. The court is one of our most important institutions because so many things that affect you directly and dramatically happen there. For example, a judge could decide if you're going to jail today, whether you're going to inherit from a will, or whether you're going to child support. So a judge reaches out and touches you in direct, dramatic fashion, much more so than people in our other elected offices. If elected as a judge, I will maintain a fair and impartial courtroom. I will give parties a chance to speak. I will treat everyone with respect. The process is very important in court, and people should leave knowing that they were heard and had an opportunity to have a fair shake. I've been a deputy district attorney for 23 years. I've handled murders, sexual assaults, and gang cases. I've been endorsed in this race by people such as Zoe Lofgren, Anna Eshue, 28 Superior Court judges, and the last 3 district attorneys. I hope that you will vote for me.
Thank you. And now as we go to questions, we will alternate back and forth as to who gets to speak first. So here's the first question. What will affect your decisions when imposing sentences for crimes? And we'll start with Mr. Harris.
The primary thing for a judge is to be fair in all instances, to make sure that he has an open mind and can make a decision based on the facts and the law. That being said, the Penal Code sets out criteria by which people are sentenced. That would be the age of the person, their criminal record, the nature of the offense, the effect on the victim, and so forth. As a judge, I will follow the law. I'll make sure that all defendants and other parties are treated fairly and with respect, and I also make sure that the victims are treated with respect. And if they're due restitution or some other recompense, I will see to it that that happens.
Thank you. Ms. Ritchie?
First of all, I will base my decisions on the law. And I will also create real change in the behavior of defendants. That is what I've done. I do not allow the pressure of attorneys or their offices or the pressure of the press to make me deviate from the law. The law does set out what we are required to do. Let me tell you a little bit about making sure that a sentence actually changes the behavior of a defendant. I had a case, it was a small case. A lot of people would not have seen this as important, but it was important to the people involved. The defendant had been charged with simple battery and disturbing the peace. He yelled homophobic statements at his neighbors, and he took a swing that didn't connect. I sentenced him to, number 1, stay 300 yards away from his neighbors, which made him move out of his neighborhood. Number 2, he had to get psychological training, anger management, and he had to get a job. I followed him for 3 years. And in the course of that time, coming back to me again and again, he completely changed his behavior. No matter what level I have a case, I will always make sure to change the behavior of the defendant.
Thank you. Our next question is, what examples of restorative justice have you been involved in? Ms. Ritchie, would you start?
I just mentioned that one of the restorative justice programs that I started with the Santa Clara County Superior Court was for prostitutes. When I became a judge, we were still sending them to jail and fining them. Now, neither of those reduces prostitution. This program, the SAGE program, we joined with SAGE in San Francisco, which is used by the San Francisco District Attorney's Office, substantially reduces the amount of prostitution and recidivism. I also have sat as a domestic violence judge, and that is a court where, number 1, I had to sentence people for domestic violence, and number 2, I made sure that they went to an anger management class for a year. Again, I followed them. Every few months, they had to come back to me, and I made sure that if they were not doing what was necessary to succeed in their anger management class, that they went back to jail. I also support the other programs which we have in our court. We have a drug court, we have a mental health court, we have a veterans court, and we are starting to expand so that we have drug parent courts and we have juvenile drug courts. those restorative justice where you actually make a difference in people's lives and help them to stop committing the crime is what is effective. That is what I support.
Thank you. Mr. Harris.
I had the opportunity to serve as what's called a community prosecutor. That is a prosecutor that is assigned outside the district attorney's office on various projects to help the community. I was assigned for 3 years to the city of Campbell, where I ran restorative justice. I helped design programs, bring together community stakeholders and different agencies to try and improve the life for people that lived in poor neighborhoods. And what we did was we towed cars, we eliminated graffiti, we brought cases against landlords who didn't repair buildings, things of that nature. Tried to improve the lot of the people that lived there so that they wouldn't want to commit petty crimes, and it would improve the condition of the neighborhood overall. I also was involved in working with community courts in restorative justice, where instead of going through the typical criminal court, the offenders, typically juveniles, would be brought in and would sit in a court composed of neighbors, and both the judges and the defendant in those cases would decide what a just punishment was, so that each would feel restored and so that each knew how the other felt and could move forward. Community restorative justice is a trend. We're going to more holistic services. The idea is to get people out into the community faster.
Thank you. And we'll start with Mr. Harris with this question. What is your background in labor law, and what are your experiences in this area?
Well, I seem to have answered this question at each forum. So I think this is a softball question for Judge Ritchie. So I was a civil attorney for many years. I did litigation involving insurance coverage, all kinds of disputes. I've also done civil work in consumer protection, where I brought cases against businesses who cheat and engage in false advertising. I've also had quite an in-depth experience in labor law. I had the opportunity, if you could call it that, to sue Santa Clara County on behalf of the District Attorney's Office over issues with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so I represented the DA's office against the county, trying to obtain real-time court reporting for deaf or hearing impaired district attorneys.
Ms. Ritchie?
All right. I have extensive experience in labor and employment law. I have represented many software engineers, directors of marketing, chief scientists throughout our county, because that's who we have working in our county. I've also represented fast food workers. I was able to have 2 cases that were class actions on behalf of fast food workers that were multi-million-dollar actions. I have handled from the cases that are worth the most to the cases that are worth the least in dollars but the most important to the particular workers. I've represented hotel maids who were trafficked and provided to hotels for less than minimum wage. I was successful in that, and was able to not only get my clients paid, but also to have the Department of Labor go against the hotels that use these maids nationwide. So I have extensive experience in labor and employment law. But as I said, I have a broad background in many areas of law.
Okay, thank you. The next question, I'm going to have to reword it in a way to apply to both of you. So let me say, and Ms. Ritchie, you're going to be the first one to answer. Here's the question. What was the most difficult case you needed to sentence? What was it about? Why was it difficult? And what sentence did you hand down? And I think, Mr. Harris, when you answer, you could talk about a case that you have had to handle Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay, so Ms. Ritchie, go ahead.
All right. So I've been both a criminal judge and a civil judge. So about half of my time has been in civil. So let me talk about the criminal cases that I've handled. I've handled criminal cases, but in cases like rape, I've handled those at the preliminary hearing stage. So I'm not the one who sentences. I think one of the cases that was the most difficult for me to sentence was just because of the dynamics in the situation. I had a case where a father attempted to choke his mother-in-law in front of his very young children. Now, when I say very young, I mean a baby and his 9-year-old daughter, and I think his son might have been 3 or 4. The person who called the police was the little daughter. She was terrified that her grandmother was going to be killed. She had to come to court, and the only person that he would allow to bring her to court was him. He represented himself, and he questioned her in a, I won't say vicious, but an entirely inappropriate manner, which I controlled to the extent I could. I made sure that he went away for a long time. I made sure he took parenting without violence classes and anger management. So I did everything to try to change that situation and be there for that little girl.
Your time is up. Okay, Mr. Harris.
Since I haven't sentenced anybody, since I'm a deputy district attorney now, what I would say that this question brings to mind the appropriateness of various sentences. And you might think, being a district attorney, that I think everybody should get the max. I believe that it's the province of the judge to use all the information available to that judge to decide what a just sentence is in each given case. Now, the district attorney is charged with being the chief law enforcement officer of the county and is in charge of protecting public safety. The judge, however, has to take in consideration what is in front of him or her at any given time. So within the parameter of the court, the criteria specified by the penal code and the special facts of each case, a judge should find a sentence that is just and fits all the facts.
Thank you. And Mr. Harris, what is your philosophy on trying a juvenile as an adult? When is this appropriate?
Well, I believe it's Section 707 of the Welfare and Institutions Code has criteria for when that should happen. And it typically happens in a violent or serious felony of the nature of a gang assault, a murder, rape, child molest, things of that nature. And the criteria used include the age and sophistication of the defendant, the circumstances, did they violate a position of trust, and so on. At the DA's office, there is generally a committee of several people that decides whether or not a juvenile should be tried as an adult. I think that the public is probably best served when it is not expanded down the list to include every type of case, but it should be reserved for those notorious crimes, as I've described, the serious and violent felonies.
Thank you. Ms. Ritchie?
I think to the extent that it's possible to still rehabilitate a person, it is when they are a juvenile. However, I do not believe that giving them light sentences as juveniles for serious crimes helps juveniles in any way. When I was still a district attorney, I was present when a judge sentenced an 18-year-old because now he was out of the juvenile system and he had been sentenced over and over and over again for violent crimes. Now that he was 18, he had committed a bank robbery with a gun and held 5 of the tellers, 5 or more, it was every single teller in the bank, one at a time, held them up with a gun. And the judge had to tell him that he was going to go to jail for more than 50 years. And the judge said to him, the juvenile system did not do you any favors. And that's what I feel like. We need to make sure that juveniles, if they're going the wrong direction, that they understand that they have to turn around. And we also have to give them every program that we can to try to help them turn around.
Thank you. Can each of you speak to your experience handling gang crime? And we'll start with you, Ms. Ritchie.
I've handled a lot of gang cases, usually when there's been violence and when there's a gang enhancement. So if there's a crime and it would get a certain sentence if it was committed by people outside a gang, that sentence is going to be substantially increased if these are gang members. So I'm well aware of how to show that this is a gang-related case, to show, you know, the norteños, the sureños, what their practices are, how to be able to tell them, how they work in concert with each other. And so I've had many of those cases, and I have, so I'm familiar with them.
Okay, Mr. Harris?
I believe I'm the only candidate that's tried a gang case, and I was on the gang team and tried several gang cases, as well as doing gang prosecutions while on other teams, depending on the defendant's status. I've tried cases involving Vietnamese, Hispanic, and black gangs. They've mostly been murders, and many of them have been in retaliation for some other insult that a gang has committed. I have to tell you, my experience in gangs shows me that it's some of the more wasteful behavior in our society. It's pointless, and people are doing things to each other for almost no reason. I had a case where a young man was murdered, was stabbed to death after bumping someone and knocking their phone into a swimming pool. The person got out, and the gang killed him for the insult. So we have a very strong gang unit at the district attorney's office, and we take it very seriously. We are trying to cope with the problems right now with the budget at the city of San Jose that restrict the number of detectives that are eligible, but it's an ongoing problem and one that is very important to people in all parts of the county because it spills over into our everyday life. And innocent, as you've probably read in the Mercury News recently, innocent people are getting caught in the middle.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, what support do you have from local law enforcement?
I've been endorsed by 18 police officer associations, including the San Jose Police, which are the biggest, the deputy sheriffs, PORAC, which is 200,000 to 300,000 members statewide in California, and almost all of the local police departments. It would include, well, Cupertino is deputy sheriffs, but Mountain View, Morgan Hill, Gilroy, and so forth.
Thank you. Ms. Ritchie?
The law enforcement virtually always endorses the district attorney. And so because I'm a neutral, I actually don't have any of those organizations who have endorsed me.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Ritchie, you will be the first one to answer this one. How would you ensure that everyone who appears in court, appears in front of you in court, gets a fair shake?
That is exactly what I do. I treat everyone, whether they're powerful or powerless, with exactly the same. I treat them with equality because in court that has to be the one place. That money doesn't matter, that education doesn't matter. You really have to make sure that everyone is treated equally. You have to listen to everything people say. You have to do the research so you know before that case is brought before you exactly what the law is in this case. You have to treat people with respect. And that is what I do every single time. I make sure not to intimidate people because people, and this may seem unusual to you, it seemed unusual to me, people sometimes are afraid of the judge, and it makes it difficult for them to communicate as well as they could if you make that a more welcoming environment. And both sides need that. They need to be able to hear. It's terribly stressful for people to be in court. It is sometimes the most traumatic experience of their lives, and only a judge who will truly listen to them and truly take their point of view into consideration can offer them justice.
Thank you. And now we come to the time for closing statements. We're going to start in the reverse order. So Mr. Harris will be first. You have 1 minute for your closing statement.
Thank you. I'd like to mention some special endorsements I received, and that is the people that work in the court. I've been endorsed by CEMA, which is the County Employee Management Association, who represent the court clerks and staff. I've also been endorsed by the deputy sheriffs who guard the court and by the probation officers who come in and recommend sentences. Also, I have 28 current and retired judges supporting me. So I have a vote of confidence from the people that actually do the work, that have the experience, that are there every day, and know what it's like to try and do justice in a situation where we have small resources and big volume. And I think that speaks volumes that they support me, and I hope that you will too. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Ritchie.
All right. Being a judge takes a lot of experience, and it's a job where you learn on the job. There's not some judge's school ahead of time. And being an attorney is nothing like being a judge. Anyone who has ever gone to court, any attorney will tell you they would rather be before an experienced judge than an inexperienced judge. I have presided over literally thousands of cases. How can that be? Because a judge with my level of experience would obviously have presided over that many cases. That is how much our experience is. So, starting over, of course, you start out with a very novice judge. I want to say that it takes courage to be a judge. You have to be willing to apply the law no matter what pressure is brought against you.
Thank you. Join me in thanking these candidates for being here tonight.
Thank you.
And thank you to those of you here in person and in the TV audience. We hope this has helped you to make a decision on which candidate you want to vote for. I would also like to thank the volunteers from the League of Women Voters who have made this forum possible. If you would like to find out more about our organization, please pick up one of our brochures in the lobby. Remember to vote on November 4th at the polls or turn in your ballot by 8 o'clock that night. We also encourage you to visit the League's nonpartisan and informative website, smartvoter.org, for more voter information. And if you're interested in government, politics, and serving the community, we urge you to join the League of Women Voters in your community. Thank you.